The NFL scouting combine is over, and two former Tennessee players turned some heads in Indianapolis over the weekend. Hey, Lucas Panzica here from 104.5 The Zone and A to Z Sports. So 6 former Vols were invited to the combine in Indianapolis in the lead up to the 2025 NFL Draft. 2 of them stole the show a little bit, especially in one of the tests that everybody pays attention to, and that is the 40 time. We begin with Tennessee edge rusher James Pearce Jr., who was the fastest among defensive linemen with the 4.47 40. There's a list of NFL players elite at their respective positions that ran a slower 40 than James Pearce Jr. at the combine. I mean, that list includes Christian McCaffrey, A.J. Brown, Pat Mahomes, among several others, and James Pearce Jr. flashed not just the speed in the 40, but just the fluidity and agility in all of the drills for defensive linemen on the field at Lucas Oil Stadium. You think back to where his draft stock was before the 2024 season, James Pearce Jr. was being talked about potentially as the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 draft. At that point, he was considered to be the best edge rusher in the 2025 draft. Now, James Pearce Jr. had a nice 2024. It didn't show up maybe in the sack numbers as much as we thought it would, but when you look at pressures, hurries, the way that he impacted games, James Pearce Jr. had a phenomenal season, but it was overshadowed by Penn State edge rusher Abdul Carter, who raced by him as the number 1 edge prospect in this draft. And then coming into Indy, James Pearce Jr. had some work to do. He was being left off of mock drafts, thought of as now even a borderline second-round pick with rumors of character issues, right? Reasons why Tennessee never trotted him out there to meet with the media as a student athlete with the Vols. Well, James Pearce Jr. showed up to Indy determined to put all of that to rest. Now, how he fared in the interview process with these teams, we cannot know. But what we can know is what showed up on the field, and that was the testing where James Pearce Jr. showed that he is one of the most athletic prospects in this entire draft. Now, the one area where James Pearce Jr. could have fared a little bit better was the vertical jump. He had a vert of 31 inches, and you compare that to Tennessee defensive lineman Elijah Simmons, who despite being 6'1" and almost 100 pounds heavier than James Pearce, had a vertical of 32 inches, which is incredible for Simmons. But apart from the vertical, James Pearce Jr., I think, made himself some money in Indianapolis. I would expect his name to be called in the first round of the upcoming draft. And then there's Tennessee wide receiver Dont'e Thornton, the Oregon transfer who led Tennessee in receiving in 2024, flashed with a 40 time of 4.3 flat. That was second fastest among receivers at the combine in 2025. This is a very deep wide receiver class, so Dont'e Thornton did a nice job in Indianapolis taking advantage of the opportunity to just have some movement up those boards if an NFL team on day 2 or 3 is looking for a deep threat, which he proved he can do on an explosive and efficient rate with Tennessee in the 2024 season. So we'll see how it all shakes out for these guys. There's no question that this trickles down to the program. The higher these players get drafted, the better for Josh Heupel in Tennessee from a recruiting standpoint, especially at the wide receiver position. I think it would really help the Vols to have a proof of concept of offensive players, skill position players going from Tennessee to the NFL and excelling at that level. It hasn't quite happened in the Josh Heupel era. Dont'e Thornton, a big opportunity for that to happen, and we'll see how much that 40 time helped his draft stock. But we'll see what happens. The Green Bay draft comes up in April of 2025, and there's a few Vols that should expect to hear their names.